Hello pilots and welcome back to Flying with Overkill F-18C Hornet, and today we're going to be taking a look at the AGM-88D Harpoon anti-ship cruise missile. Gosh, couldn't get my crap together there. Alright, so the AGM-88D or the Harpoon has quite a few different launch options that can make it pretty fun to use. First, let's go ahead and talk about getting into it. Okay, so the first thing is, let's talk about a couple of parameters or things to be aware of. First off, you cannot fire the missile below 2,500 feet due to the fact that it's a drop missile. Okay, it just simply drops from the aircraft and then its engines ignite. So because of that drop from the aircraft, it may impact the water, and honestly, it could destroy the aircraft. Second thing is, when dropping a Harpoon, it is not uncommon to get a radar altimeter warning. Okay, and that's just because the radar altimeter is detecting the missile underneath the aircraft. Okay, so it may sound for a quick second then go off. That's completely normal. And the third thing to keep in mind is that the Harpoon can be shot down. So if you are attacking Navy warships, you may have to flood the area with Harpoons in order to actually strike the target. And again, this is going to be determined based on how many Navy warships there are that can actually take down a cruise missile. Okay, so those are the three biggest things that you want to be aware of. We'll talk about obviously a few other parameters and things that you may run into as the course goes on. Alright, I'm going to try to get everything into one course today, but if not, I will break it up into two. Alright, so first thing, let's just talk about use of it. And then after we've talked about using of it, then we'll go into some things that can go south. So first we want to set ourselves up in air-to-ground mode. We can leave the air-to-ground radar on for now. It's not going to hurt anything. I am going to turn the moving map off for now. And then we're going to go ahead up here to our stores page and hit HPD for Harpoon D. Alright, first thing that happens is it has a 24-second cooldown timer, so until this cooldown expires, the missile cannot be used. You have your different modes of operation. Now, right now you can see we are in bearing only launch mode right here under mode. This will not be changeable unless a ground designated target can be established. So either you have taken a waypoint and designated as done a weapons designate on it, you have found a target over here on the air-to-ground radar, or you have found a target and designated with the targeting pod. Real quick on the targeting pod, I'm probably not going to demonstrate that one, just because, I mean, designation is designation. You guys watch any air-to-ground tutorials in regard to the targeting pod, and you're going to know how to designate a target. Basically, you go to your TGP, you find your target, you hit your target designate button, bam, you've designated a target. Okay, the thing with the TGP to be aware of is that, again, when we start talking about anti-ship missiles, okay, if there is a Navy warship around that can fire on you, that can fire missiles, chances are by the time you can see it with a TGP, or at the very least designate it with a TGP, it's probably going to be shooting at you at that point. So be cautious when using the TGP. Okay, we have FLT, this is the flight altitude designator, so you have currently it's set in medium, which is 15,000 feet, high up to 35,000 feet, and low at 5,000 feet. And actually, excuse me, I think high is 30,000 feet. Now, here's the trick. The other thing you need to be aware of with the Harpoon, and speaking of altitudes, the Harpoon will never climb. Okay, so if you want the missile to cruise at 30,000 feet, you need to be at about 33,000 feet in order for it to come down to that altitude. The cool thing about firing at the max altitude is you can get about 90 nautical miles out of it. I tested it, and the most I've gotten was 84, 85-ish, but I think 90 is, probably a pretty reasonable number to say. I did have a little bit of turning going on with my missile, so all those things are going to take an effect, obviously. Alright, and then terminal. What is the missile going to do when it begins its attack? Okay, so it's going to find its target before it goes terminal. So once it acquires its target, it's going to fly at whatever your altitude is here set for flight. But then when it goes terminal, it's going to do one of two things. Skim, it's going to go very, very low to the water, and the idea is to hit the ship in its keel, okay, so below the deck. Or you can do pop-up, which the missile will then rise to 500 feet and then dive down on the ship that you are attacking and attempt to damage the deck or the superstructure, whatever's on top. Okay, so those are the three attack modes that are available, or the two attack modes that are available for the Harpoon. Now, when we're in bearing only launch mode, we have to worry about these three configurations here. Only when we're in bearing only launch mode. Okay, that's very important to understand. And actually, when we go into range and bearing, these will disappear. But, so we're going to come here to our UFC. And the first thing is search. And there's two things to remember about search. But I'm going to give you the first one until we're ready to talk about the second. So, the first method is, this is all going to be in relationship to from the time the missile is fired. Okay, it has nothing else other than the second it leaves the aircraft. Where are you? There it is. The second it leaves the aircraft, it's going to execute these three settings. First, search. The distance from the time it's launched that the missile's radar is going to come on and begin searching for targets. Why is that important? Okay, why wouldn't we want it just to activate the second it fires? The reason being is, let's say you have targets at 30 nautical miles, but you have friendlies at 15 nautical miles. If that radar goes active the second it launches and it detects your friendlies at 15 nautical miles, one of your friendlies is about to eat a harpoon. Okay, it does not designate or differentiate, I should say, between friend or foe. Okay, it's going to look for a boat in the water. That is it. It does not matter whose it is. So, in our case, let's go ahead and set our search to 30 miles. Okay, now on the HSI, you can see this horizontal line just appeared. That is your visual indicator of when the missile is going to go active. Now our destruct, okay, how far from after the missile is fired do we want the missile to self-destruct? Okay, and let's go ahead and bring up our distance here. Let's go to 80. So right now we're set at 60 nautical miles. So here's where the missile's radar will turn on. This X is where the missile will destroy itself. Okay, now let's go ahead and give you guys some reference here so that way we can see how to set it up. Now, most missions you're not going to have this availability, but I built it, so I get to do whatever I want. Let's sort of get an idea of the missile's trajectory to our target range. Okay, now it's going to go directly to it. So at 50 miles, approximately, the missile's going to reach our targets out here. Okay, so we want to make sure the self-destruct range is outside of that. At 30 miles, the radar will come on, and then we want, so let's call it 65 miles, after it passes the area, if it doesn't find anything, we want the missile to self-destruct. Okay, so let's go back into our UFC, we're going to go destruct, and we're going to change that to 65 miles. Okay, there, so extend that just a little bit. Alright, and then our bearing. What is the course we want the missile to fly the second it leaves the aircraft? So in this case, again, let's cheat a little bit, and we're going to go back to our F10 map, and you can see it right here is 344. By the way, if you're ever using this ruler, you need to make sure you drag it from the aircraft to the target, not the other way around. So if we were to go the other direction, look at the course setting, 157 degrees. Okay, so you don't want that. So always use your ruler from launch to target. Okay, and I need to back that up because I have no idea what it's actually set to. Darn ruler. There we go. Alright, so let's bring this back up. We're going to come back down to here. Try to get a little bit more precise. Alright, so we're using it, looking at 343 degrees. So let's go back into our aircraft. Well, I don't know why I did that. So we're going to go UFC, bearing of 343 degrees. And you can see that also changed as well here on the HSI. Alright, so here's what's going to happen. When we launch our missile, it's going to fly at 5,000 feet. It's going to pop up on the target. Actually, I'm going to change that. I like the skim. It's going to ride the waves all the way to its target once it has acquired the target. So it's going to first fly at 5,000 feet. Once it acquires the target and goes terminal, it's going to go very, very low to the water. Okay, at 30 nautical miles after we fire it, it will turn its search radar on. If it does not find anything by 65 nautical miles, it will self-destruct, and it's going to travel on a heading of 343 degrees. We have everything we need. We are in zone. This indicates that there are no parameters that are out of sync that will prevent the missile from performing. We have a ready status here, and the brevity for firing a harpoon from an aircraft is bruiser. Alright, so there's the smoke from the Kuznetsov right there. And we should see the missile descend once it acquires a target. Alright, so it's descended. Now it's going terminal. can see it riding the waves there. Sorry, now it went terminal. It goes very, very low once it finds a target, and then that last little dip was the missile going terminal. And boom, there's a strike. Now, that particular impact against a ship like the Kuznetsov probably isn't going to do a whole lot, but... Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use this button here, which is the Harpoon turn point. Let's go back to our map for a second, so again, I can give you guys some clarity of what's happening here. I don't want that, I want that. And we're going to go ahead and select it. Why do you do that? Uncheck that. Give me that back. Alright, so what we want to do is we still want the missile to attack these targets, but we want to tell it when to turn. So what we're going to do is we're going to have it fly to waypoint 3. I don't know why I clicked off screen. That was really dumb. So let's bring that back up. Sorry about that, guys. We want the missile to fly to waypoint 3, and then we want it to turn and try to strike one of these boats on the side. Versus what we did before is the missile left the aircraft and went straight for our bearing. So we're going to have to change our bearing here. So we're going to right click again, and we're going to go from here. And now we're going to be looking at, what do we got? 058, 060. I think if we do, what's sort of right in the middle here? Let's do a 063, see what we get. See if maybe we hit a different ship this time. So, we want the missile to fly to waypoint 3, then it's going to turn, and we need to tell it to turn to 063 degrees. And that's the other thing to remember, by the way, real quick. All of these programs, each time you program the missile, you must reprogram it when you go to the next missile. The programming is never shared. Notice that everything has now reset now that it's on the new missile. The flight level, we had this set to low. The term is still skim, but that's default. But look at the search, look at the self-destruct is now back to default, and the bearing is back to default. Okay, so each time that you fire a missile, you must reprogram it. All right, so let's go ahead and set the flight back to low. I like low. We'll do a pop-up on this one. So what's going to happen is when the missile goes terminal again, it's going to pop up to 500 feet and then strike down on the superstructure. And let's do a waypoint. We're going to come down here and select waypoint 3. You don't have to box it, but it does have to be selected in the HSI. And now we're going to box Harpoon turn point. Okay, and you can see now the Harpoon's path is going to go to our waypoint 3 and turn inward. Alright, and now let's set up our search parameters. And all these search parameters are now going to be from waypoint 3. Okay, they are no longer going to be from the time it fires the aircraft or leaves the aircraft. It's going to be from the time it makes its turn and reaches the waypoint. So, from waypoint 3, let's do 10 miles. That's going to be pretty tight. Oops, helps if I box it. Do 10 miles. Self-destruct, we're going to do take that down to 40 miles. Okay, you can see that now came way down again. And you can see our horizontal line now. Okay, right up there with waypoint 3. And our bearing, we said that we wanted to use 063 degrees from waypoint 3. Okay? So, everything else is set. We're still in zone. We have our missile parameters the way we want. So, bruiser. And the missile's away. There's the turn. Here's our 063 degrees. It's found a target. Notice how we were able to bypass the Kuznetsov and that destroyer over there. There's the pop-up. That's actually more like about 1,000 feet. And boom, right on the superstructure. That was a good hit. Okay. So, I hope you guys see the advantage there. Let's go ahead and kick that back down. There we go. Time's ticking over here. Sun's going down. So the advantage there is if you have an idea of where your ships are located, you can set your search range to be close enough where it can't acquire the target. Now you can't do, like, for example, if you were to set like right here, the missile's going to go by. Because the other thing that you have to consider when setting your search ranges is you have to make sure that the missile has enough time to descend down to the target. You saw how even at 5,000 feet, it still went down low to the water and then came back up. Okay, even in the pop-up configuration. So you have to make sure you give the missile enough time to dive down to the target. Now, if the missile doesn't have time to run its low trajectory, okay, to go down low to the water and then do a pop-out, I have been able to make the missile just dive straight down onto the target. But again, it has to have enough time to acquire the target. So be thoughtful, I guess, when determining your search ranges. Make sure you're thinking about, does the missile have enough time to perform the action once it's acquired the target? Because otherwise what will happen is it'll dive down and splashes into the water. Okay? All right, so we've now talked about the turn point. So let's go ahead and move on to the next section, in which in the last two launches we will talk about the bearing mode. Range and bearing mode. So here's what we're going to do now. We're going to come up here to waypoint 5, which is our target zones. The boats are actually out there, and we're going to weapon designate. Okay, now that we weapon designate that area, we can switch our mode to range, bearing, launch. Notice the search, destruct, and bearing parameters are now gone. Alright, so now all we have to do is pick our flight. So again, I'm going to run low. I like it. I'm going to use skim again on this one. Seek. Now this is basically what our search did, but we are changing. We only have 3 options to work with when in the seek mode. Okay, you have medium, which is default, which is 10.8 nautical miles. Then you have large, which is 16.2 nautical miles, and then finally small, which is 5.4. And this is going to be, instead of after a waypoint, after it leaves the aircraft, this is going to be distance to the target area. So in our case, waypoint 5, like our current configuration at 5.4 nautical miles before waypoint 5 is when the search radar will come on. Okay, now the cool thing is you can still use your Harpoon turn point as well. So if we come down to waypoint 4, okay, and we do a Harpoon turn point, okay. Well, actually, let's come down to waypoint 3, and I'll show you why in a minute. We're going to do waypoint 3 and do the Harpoon turn point. Notice how I just cycled it to change it. And then come to waypoint 5 and do a weapon designate, change our mode. Okay, now look what we've got that's going to happen. Now the missile's going to travel to waypoint 3, just like it did before. Waypoint 5 is going to be the target area, so 5 miles away from waypoint 5, the seeker will come on. We have it ready. We're in range. Bruiser. Alright, so here we go. Come on up on our turn point again. And we're just about close enough. The seeker should be active, and it is. It's diving down. Looks like that first cruiser is about to have a bad day. And let's watch for the missile to go terminal. It might have already done so. Nope, there you go. Here's the terminal. And boom. And by the way, guys, each one of these ships can destroy a Harpoon. I have it disabled in the mission editor for the sake of this video. Okay. All right. So those are the, I would say, the 3 or 4 major ways. You do not have to use a Harpoon turn point to designate a target waypoint. So, you know, if you want to do one more real quick, you know, we can punch one out real fast. So waypoint 5 is still designated as the target area, as we can see here. So if we just switch our mode, boom, we're good to go. And we can even use all of these telemetry items. And let's just let the last one loose. So bruiser. We did not use a Harpoon turn point this time. We just having the missile fly directly to the target area. And we were set to a medium activation on the Seeker, so it should be at about 10.8 nautical miles. It should start searching. But this may be a pretty dramatic dive down. I'm hoping actually that it misses. I'd like to see you guys see that. Seeker's on. Alright, so very steeply diving down. It's acquired a target. And I don't think there's anything out there, so yeah, perfect. So what happened here is I did not set the range far enough where the missile was able to dive down. Or am I wrong and it found something? What did you find? It's turning dramatically. Okay, this could be really cool, guys. What are we at now? Our heading 050, 060, 07, 05. It's turning around. Holy wow. Look at that. Okay, so we just watched this missile do a complete 180. And now it looks like that destroyer is what it found. Wow. Okay, that was really cool. I have never, in all of my tests, I've probably fired 100 of these things by now. I've never seen it do anything like this. Wow. That was neat. Okay, so apparently if your parameters, if the situation's just right, the missile will literally fly a 360-degree circle and come back and strike your target. So that was pretty awesome. I wouldn't count on that happening often. But anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial, and I will catch you guys in the next one where we will go over all the different error messages or different scenarios that you might have to correct before the missile can be launched. I'll see you guys in the next one.